Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Earth's Ascension with Carl and Ortrune Franklin. Good morning, Carl and Ortrune.
Good morning, everyone.
It's almost New Year. It is, yeah.
Snowy and wintry and like we expected to be up north, right?
It's beautiful out there.
It is. So, anyhow, we hope you all had an absolutely wonderful Christmas time. And of course, Christmas time and this time of the Festival of Lights is not over yet. You know, here it is. We think it's almost over here in the United States area, but around the world, it still keeps going on. So, with that being said, I'm going to let Carl get started on what he'd like to present to you this morning.
The information that is coming in to me, either directly or via the channeled information that I read or personal experience, is that 2022 is going to be a most interesting and for many people a challenging year. And what is happening is going to demand a great deal from the light workers. And I was checking this morning, and it looks like there are about 65 million light workers on the planet, but they are in various stages of awakening. And the ones that are really needed this year, or this coming year, are going to be those most highly evolved light workers. And by that, I'm defining a highly evolved light worker as one who is functioning 30 to 40% or more of their awake time and in the fifth dimensional level of consciousness. Now, I mentioned before that Jesus, when he walked the earth, was functioning at the high end of the fifth dimension. And the fifth dimension can be described in one word as at-one-ment. At-one-ment between people, between humans and nature, and between humans and the Creator. There is a unity, a sense of wholeness, of oneness with everyone and everything. The light workers at this point, those that I have worked with, are functioning about between 30 and 42% of their awake time in the fifth dimension. They're functioning 45 or 50% in the fourth dimension, and that's a dimension of transition. That's a dimension where a person is moving out of service to self and service to others. They have a concern for, not just their family or their country, but they have a concern for humanity. They're developing a concern for the planet. And the third dimension is primarily, it's service to self, and it is more fear, limitation, and separation oriented, okay? And the more evolved light workers are spending very little of their conscious time, maybe 12 to 18% in the third dimension. And they're spending, 2 to 3 times that amount of time in the fifth dimension. Now, it appears, and I'm quoting the Zetas. The Zetas are a higher dimensional space race, and I don't know what dimension they're functioning at, but based on their information, I'm going to guess they're maybe seventh dimensional, and they seem to be very oriented towards Earth changes. And they're saying that there's going to be a major movement in the Madrid fault line, and that's a fault line that goes up the Mississippi. And they're saying it could have been late this year or early, it will be early January. Now, they are very accurate in terms of predicting what's going to happen, but they're not very accurate in predicting when it's going to happen, because at their dimension, they don't have a linear time, past, present, and future. They live in the now time. So because they don't have experience in linear time, they're very poor in projecting when. I'm getting in my dowsing that major earthquake activity is going to occur in May. All right? And it's going to be significant enough that it's going to take out the bridges and the pipelines and the cables that cross the Mississippi. And we had a little touch of that here earlier this year when one of the major pipelines that carried fuel, particularly gasoline and diesel, from the west or part of the country up into the New England area, that pipeline was shut down. Well, it wasn't because of a bribery or a blackmail. It was because there was some earth activity there, and there are sensors on these pipelines that when activity reaches a certain point, they close down. And they stayed closed down until the earth settled down, all right? Well, if there's activity strong enough that's going to break all of that, a lot of the communications and a lot of the transportation of products, and particularly food and energy that comes from the western part of the country to the eastern part, is going to be severed, all right? And this is where light workers who are functioning at or near the Christed level of consciousness have an absolutely major role to play. And we need as many people at that level of consciousness as possible. Because I'm going to intermix now. I work with science and I also work with religion and metaphysics, all right? And combining these three, Jesus said, I'm not the one that's doing the works. It's the Father in me or the Father through me that's doing it. And the disciples thought that they were talking about, God in heaven. Well, I don't think that's correct. I think what he was talking about is the divine essence that existed within him. And we refer to it as our soul. Jesus, in my perspective, had become one with his divine soul. And thus he said, my Father and I are one. Again, the disciples interpreted that, well, he's the only Son of God. Well, no. My interpretation is he is saying he had completely merged and become one with the divine essence within himself. He'd become one with his own soul. And he said to us, he said, everything that I can do, you can do, and even greater. And in order to do that, we're going to need to be at or near that Christed level of consciousness. And if we have enough light workers that are there, we'll be able to walk through the supermarkets and fill the empty shelves with whatever product was what would normally be in that, whether it's food or whether it's paper products or meat products or dairy products, all right? And so we can help alleviate the shortages that will exist throughout much of the world, because commerce will not be able to go east or west in this country. Okay, so we have a great opportunity. Now, most third-dimensional people are going to see such an event as a huge problem, a threat, and is going to engender fear. A fifth-dimensional light worker is going to see it as, here's a chance where I can help. And because they are at the high enough level of consciousness, they can call energy into physical form. And we now know from science that everything in our universe, well, I'm exaggerating here. We've got three fields of science that have indicated that consciousness exists on the level of the vegetation, trees, etc., and on the level of individual atoms, and on the subatomic level, the quantum level of photons. And my projection is that science is eventually going to prove that consciousness is universal. And with our consciousness connecting with the consciousness of atoms, we can call them into the form that is needed to fill those grocery shelves. all right? And anything else that someone truly needs. And for us to reach that level of consciousness can be, well, it's going to be more important this year than it's ever been in the past, okay? And I would like to give you some steps in order to attain the Christed level of consciousness. The basic step is to always be aware of the thought in your mind. And most of our emotions come out of thoughts. And if it's a negative, you want to immediately replace it with a positive. And this is where mantras can come in handy. Hold on to positive thought and positive emotion, all right? And secondly, meditate daily. And one of the things to do in your meditation is ask that your spirit family, and in meditation, connect with and communicate with your spirit family, which is made up of 20, in light workers, over 20 angels, plus guides from heaven, plus teachers, master teachers, ascended master teachers like Saint Germain, and higher aspects of your soul. And working with your spirit family, ask them to open wide and to keep open throughout the day and coming night your chakras, your energy centers, to keep them at a level that they are functioning and can conduct Christ conscious energy. All right? And then secondly, I would ask them to help you merge within yourself, your heart and your mind, so that you're working not out of your mind or not out of your heart, but out of your heart-mind. You're working out of both together. And the final step is to then work to merge your heart-mind with your divine soul, so that your heart, mind, and soul are now one, functioning as one. And in that state, you are either at or approaching Christ consciousness. And working with your heart, mind, and soul together, you can call energy into whatever form or a shape is needed. Okay? So to work on yourself that will be your personal ascension, incidentally. Okay? And by doing that, you can help hundreds or thousands of other people come through this period of time that we're going into, and there are going to be more things happening as we move through as the Earth goes through its ascension. All right, and the number of people that you're going to influence who see what you are doing, and if they have the desire to be able to do it themselves, can you imagine the influence you can have on them? So instead of there only being as I get there are probably about 1.8 million people on the planet that are now at or approaching that point of Christ consciousness. And if these people can literally play a major role in transforming the consciousness of humanity. Okay? Now, I think Ortrin has some questions that she wants to ask here that we haven't yet covered. Ortrin?
Well, first and foremost, Carl, I'm wondering, when you talk about this Madrid fault line, where is that supposed to be?
It starts in the Gulf of Mexico. It travels up the Mississippi River. And what the Zetas are saying is that it's going to, it will often follow rivers because rivers are a thinner part of the crust, all right? And we know that because water that flows downhill is always flowing into the rivers. So it'll come up the Mississippi, and then it will branch off up the Ohio, up the Illinois River. And they said that there's going to be major damage in Chicago. And it may touch the south end of Lake Michigan. It's going to cut across at a almost east-west with a little north slant across lower Michigan. It may hit Detroit or it'll be close to that. Then it's going into the St. Lawrence Seaway. And most of the time it'll be in the Canadian side of the seaway. And it will traverse New York, the state of New York, and go out into the Atlantic. Okay, that's And so really, the U.S. is going to be literally divided into two until we can reestablish rebuild the bridges and so on. So there's going to be a major disruption of communications, electrical energy, petroleum products, and everything shipped by rail and truck for, I'm going to say, probably 18 to 24 months. Okay? So that's the Madrid fault line. And after that, then there's to be major earthquake activity in Europe. And that will include some tidal wave activity, too. Okay? Ortru?
Okay, no, I just am trying to clarify this because you're talking about the Madrid fault line. There's a place that's called the New Madrid fault line. Is there a difference between that?
I'm not familiar with that term, but that could be the offshoot that's coming up the Ohio-Illinois River and headed towards the northeast.
I don't know. Okay. Well, let me just say this much, is that these are predictions.
Yeah.
So I was dowsing, and what I was getting that, yes, this is has happened before.
Yeah.
And there's a possibility that it will happen. But what I'm getting is it's really a probability at this point in time that it's not. And then the other thing I'd like to say about that is the more and more that we raise our consciousness, I'm going to say, and focus attention on really not only that area, but all of the United States and really the entire world, which is part of the Ascension process, that can lift that out of that vibratory frequency where that would possibly not even occur, or if it does occur, that it might be not nearly as potent as what you're mentioning here. I just want to say that, and we are part of this ascension process, and part of the ascension process is to lift the planet of the Earth, the vibratory frequencies. So that will help to lift that energy and change the whole scenario, it could, of what it is that, the Zetas are saying about this at this particular time.
Well, Carl and Ortrun, if I can interject for just a little sec. As I'm listening to both of you talk about the subject, what I'm seeing, personally, is that what we're talking about could potentially be something that is actually metaphorical. Because when you're talking about dividing the country in half and bridges being burned and oil and all of that, it seems to me that we're already living that, metaphorically speaking. That even within families are polarized right now. And bridges have been burned, and bridges have been broken that need to be rebuilt. And as a society, we're moving away from crude oil to electricity. So for me, I'm seeing like the metaphorical perspective of what you're talking about. How does that feel to you when I say that?
I think that's a distinct possibility. And I think the intensity of what the Zetas are saying is predicated on the current level or even the past level of human consciousness. As we raise our consciousness, we can move it into to the point where it is simply metaphorical. Okay, or at least we can diminish the devastation or the intensity of these earth movements. I think the earth movements are going to have to shift because in order for the earth to take on her fifth dimensional configuration, and the earth is now functioning in the fourth dimension, and we have experienced, changes in the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic field that the earth produces. We've experienced that. And we have... we're experiencing weather changes, okay? And that's all a part of the earth shifting into these higher dimensions. So there is going to be some physical manifestation, but if enough of us are functioning at a higher level of consciousness, that's going to minimize it. Now, I want to qualify that. It may be metaphorical if the planet hits a Y in the road, which it may already be in, where there are two Earths that are functioning parallel, or running almost parallel, but as we go through time, moving a little further apart from each other. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this would be, instead of a planetary evolvement, it would be two planets, one evolving, the other not. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the people on the planet that are not evolving will stay on the non-evolving planet. The ones that are evolving, that have moved out of service to self and are now functioning as in service to others, they will be on the ascending planet. So the lower dimensional planet, it can be very traumatic. And on the ascending planet, it can be much less traumatic. How does that resonate with you?
That does resonate. And I, for people who aren't maybe familiar with quantum physics or those kind of things, both of you have been around the block a few times. You know a few things. The both of you know a whole lot when it comes to metaphysics and physics and just plain old life in general. And I wanted to ask a question of you both that's kind of mundane. It addresses something ordinary. But would you talk for a moment about the power of, or the influence of, positive behavior on the earth plane? Because we are being inundated now with stories of people who are just lashing out verbally, physically, all sorts of behavior that is, to say the least, unbecoming, but has no boundaries or civility to it. And I think that civility and compassion and right speech, just in our daily lives, can help us elevate not only ourselves, but all of us. The two of you have been teaching for decades. You've been on this planet for decades. Would you talk for a moment about decorum and civility and the potency of it?
Okay, what you're alluding to here is the indication in my mind that the two planets have already split, that they are drifting apart. Humanity seems to be in two camps. Okay, and that's a sign of what planet a person is going to be on, or is on. But the overlap between these two planets is still so great that we're greatly influenced one by the other.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think the big issue, and I'm going to say in a sense problem, is that getting the ones that are not, I'm going to say in a sense, civil, to move into that type of consciousness. But yet, in my thinking, and I believe that there is a spark of light in everyone, so we can model this behavior, within our own circles, and that reaches out, and it can influence others, to model that in their circles also. But in the meantime, instead of in any way, shape, and form being negative or sending any negative energy to those other energies that are around us and so on, that are sparking like this, to quickly change that thought to sending divine radiant light and love to those individuals, and seeing that part of themselves, that where that spark of light is, that be ignited. Because there's not much that we can do other than on the spiritual realm to help assist others to move on forward. The immediate circle, yes, we can speak to them and give them ideas and so on, and they're a little more open. But the ones that are in the outer rim of this, you know, they've got their own agenda, and they've so far sunk it into that space of this is the way it is, and this is where we're going, and this is what we're going to do. So that's really all we can do. But that is part of what we are here for, to help with this ascension process of the planet, is to love them. I remember our teacher, Jim Gore, my gosh, that was at the beginning of when Carl and I were first into metaphysics together. And he is the one that has had the Light Center up in Black Mountain, North Carolina. And he would go to places with his people. If there were things going on somewhere, he'd take them and they would be there and they would pray, and they could see the difference. You know, if there was tons of crimes going on in a city, they went there and they prayed and they sent positive light, love energies to that town and so on, and they found that crime rates would drop. Mm. And the other thing that he taught us was that if you're going to watch the news, do not allow yourself to get pulled into the news. If you're going to watch the news, before you even watch it, fill yourself with that divine essence of who it is you are, and asking that your divine ones be there, because I'm expanding this a little bit more, but then ask also that the divine ones of anyone that's speaking on the TV and so on, that their divine ones are there too, because they are somewhere. They've just pushed them so far back at times. And see that essence of themselves coming through, only to send positive energies, love, light, peace energies to the news. And even though they're speaking about all of these negative issues, those can be penetrated and changed just by performing that kind of an act. And yes, it seems like an impossible thing to do just for one person. But the more and more people that do that, the more and more that the whole energy vibration can change and be brought around. Carl has something to say at this time.
What they're telling me is that the ascension is both personal and planetary. It isn't either or. Okay, and as we evolve on the planet, we're helping the planet to evolve by grounding higher frequency energies. Okay, so yes, positive thought, positive action, positive reactions. The basic effect is not what happens, but it's our reaction to it that influences us and others. So make your reaction, as Ortrun is saying, let it respond with light and love with what is in the highest good of those people involved in whatever situation.
I love that. Because, you know, a lot of times, because we are living this human life, we can feel like we're just being washed over with just negativity after negativity. We can feel powerless, and sometimes we can throw the towel in and say, I don't make a difference anyway. Here I am sitting in front of my TV or what have you, and it's a lost cause. I hear that a lot with clients who say it's a lost cause. I'm throwing in the towel. And so to have, you know, the both of you discuss, you know, we do make a difference.
Yes, we do. Huh?
So thank you for addressing that, Carl and Ortrun.
Yes. So I think that we have on the show today that was we were going to go a little bit into, you know, whether are we going to do this ascension process alone, and if we are involved in it at all, you know, we are doing that. That's the first most important, is that you do that focusing on, you know, the divine and seeing the good in all that they're around you, and seeing the prayer aspect. There are others that are going to have to be involved in different manners. You know, they will be doing the protesting. And so everyone has a task. So there's nothing wrong with any of the tasks. You can't say, well, that's a waste of time. You shouldn't be doing that. Because if you listen to your inner guidance, you'll know what is the appropriate thing for you to do. And then there is that, well, you can do it separately and just be on your own, but that's really not the greatest way to do things, because then can be that sense of being totally alone. Or you can then, but if you start utilizing the energy of that light and love is find others that have similar types of, I'm going to say, purposes here on the planet, because we all have a purpose, and our energy is needed here on this earth plane. You know, our energy needs to be grounded because that's what's going to help to lift that planet up. And so then that makes that energy vibration that you are formulating within yourself and having to radiate from you, it then gathers together a group and it becomes stronger. So that energy vibration of that particular objective is then a little bit more powerful, and it helps to influence the planet more. And then the more we do that, the more basically, if you see that, and you've seen these pictures of the planet Earth being in the center, and then all of the peoples of the world are hand in hand around the planet, and they've come together in peace and harmony, and that is the most powerful thing that we can do for the planet, is to do that. And I know, and then we lift that up, because the energy of all those vibratory frequencies, every single one of us carries different energies, and all those different energies need to be changed and helped upon the planet. It's not just one thing or one energy vibration that needs to be, uplifted in awareness and consciousness. So it just grows. You start with yourself, and that will grow into that group, and then it will grow into the entire planet, working together.
Yeah, this is a unique time because historically, Ascension has always been individual or in a small group. And now we're working on ascending an entire planet. That's never been attempted here on the planet before. And this is, according to the channel information, normally a personal ascension happens while you're in between physical lifetimes, all right? But this time they're trying it with ascending with people staying in their physical bodies, which is perhaps the reason that we're going to go through this split of the Earth becoming two Earths, okay? And so we're ascending a planet which this has never been tried before, at least not while the light workers are in their physical body. So this is a unique experiment, and if it is successful, it may become the norm that will spread throughout not only our universe, but even other universes. So what we're involved in here and working towards can have effects that go way, way beyond anything we could even begin to imagine.
I'd like to open it up now. Are there any questions out there with the audience?
Any questions from the chat room? Anybody who needs to hop into the chat room is open. Jess, if you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share, that would be terrific. At this point, we don't have anything. I believe that everyone is just engaged in listening to what you're presenting this morning.
Okay.
So while we're waiting for any questions that may crop up, would the both of you take a moment to talk about the books that you have written and where people can purchase a copy?
Okay, I have written a book. It's entitled Key of Life. It's integrating ancient wisdom into the modern world. The truth doesn't change. True truth does not change. And so the ancient religions, they taught the truth, and it's that recognition of bringing that forward and recognizing the truth and all that there is. And once you notice that, you notice it within yourself. It's like this steel rod. But my book is basically based on recognizing some of the truths of the ancient times and seeing how they are still pertinent in our life today. And because we are all living what's considered the outer, but taking all of what we're living in the inner, and that by connecting to the divine within, then you uplift that energy vibration of what it is that you are doing, and you recognize and become more uplifted in the process of your own ascension and also on others. And so the name of my book is Key of Life, Integrating Ancient Wisdom into the Modern World. and it can be gotten at our website. You can also get it through lulu.com, and put in that particular title with my name. And but our website is OurSpiritualAscension.com. And it actually is OUR. The spiritual is spelled just like spiritual, and Ascension is ASCENSION.com. And I'm going to let Carl talk about his now.
My book is Earth Ascension, Nibiru, and the Spirit Realm. And it talks about some of the changes that are taking place and will be taking place on the physical Earth and within our human consciousness as we go through the ascension process. And there's a chapter dealing with the crystal indigo children and their higher evolved DNA that they're coming in with. And my experience is that now the vast majority, 90-some% of the children coming in are coming in with this advanced DNA. So you can get you can order it again from our website, OurSpiritualAscension.com, and both of our books are only $15 plus shipping, which is I think about $3 or $4, and so they're quite reasonable. And I think it can be helpful if you're interested in these areas. I also have a number of CDs that deal with healing yourself, creating with thought.
And Carl and Ortrun are also guest speakers via Zoom webinar, of course, during the times that we're living in right now. But they have an engagement coming up this coming Sunday, correct, at the Spiritualist Church in Grand Rapids?
Yes, I will be speaking there on Sunday, and it'll be, basically, usually we don't have to give a title for that particular place. So it's really whatever comes to us at that particular time, what the message is at that time. So it really is spirit-driven. So, but it'll probably be more on the whole, I'm going to say in the still of the night, because right now we're in that phase of our life and the year and the cycle where we are settling within ourselves and then creating the new consciousness and awareness and what it is not only for ourselves, but, out here on the planet, too.
I like that.
So, and if you go to, I've got it on Our Spiritual Ascension. Is it on that one? I'm not sure. But it's under my name, Ortrun Franklin, and there's a Key of Life that's under that. So there's various places that you can get the password for it, or anybody that already knows about within my different Facebook pages, they'll be able to get that password. Oh, Carl wanted also.
As we make this transition. That's a great question, Jess. Thank you.
Okay. Number one, do all that you can to help build a positive self-image. And number two, help them establish contact with the spirit world that is working through them and with them, their spirit family. And let them know that the only requirement for if they want to be helped is to ask. And it's best if they can direct their request to the angels working with them, but if they can direct the request, not just throw it out broadly, that will have some effect, but direct it to whoever can be most helpful. And for children, I'm going to suggest probably if they direct it to the angels that are with them all of the time, and have probably been with them, the same angels for many, many lifetimes. Okay?
I
like that.
Right, and not to discourage them at all, because the outer world will discourage them in some of their types of thinking, but because there was, even you're asking that question, there was a family that it is much more open as far as, how a child thinks and presents to always let them feel that what they're saying is worthy. It means something, not put them down in any way, shape, or form, and encourage them in their beautiful talents and skills, because that's how they are going to be the ones that become the new leaders here on the planet.
And
I always say everyone. I shouldn't really say everyone, but especially children. They love anything to do with nature. They love digging in the dirt. They love, picking flowers, and they. It's a natural part of them, and they want to learn about that. So it is important for them to be able to have that experience of knowing how to plant a seed, so that they can grow food, or they can, grow herbs, because that's an important part of their growing up experience. For one thing, it's going to allow them to consume, when they're older. Their parents are helping them with that now, but the things that are appropriate for their bodies, and the understanding of the worthiness of all of those different things of nature, and their importance, and how they are part of us, and how they're not any less than we are, that they are actually, being a part of us, and it's just a natural part of us. We're all growing together with it. We, the individuals, the children, and all of these different plants and trees, and all the different ways of being able to, in a sense, survive if they have to. And hopefully it would never come to that part. But, then they know, and that helps also to increase the energy vibrations of what's going on here on the planet, too. And these little ones are coming with probably much, much more oomph than we did, when we were children. And I'm going to say more divine essence and so on, because our planet has, believe it or not, ascended to all these different things that are around us, and giving thanks to the plants, the flowers, the trees, the wheat, the animals, and they will recognize the harmony of the whole entire planet, and how we are all working together, and how we're intertwined, so that that space, which we talk about here, going into that fifth dimensional level of awareness, will be more a real natural thing for them, because it's already there in their soul. They've got that message. Now we just need to cultivate them, and being able to bring that forth even more.
thank you for that, Ortrun.
Thank you.
And Jess says thank you as well.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, it's 11, almost 11:45. I think that we've probably come to the end of our show, right?
Yeah, it's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us, Dana. It's really always a pleasure, and we appreciate everyone that listens in here, and we also send all of you divine light and love, because part of my prayer every day is to see the whole planet, everyone upon it, being filled with light and love too.
And hey, please, everyone, make the year 2022 the best year of your life, regardless of whatever circumstances might come in. React in a beautiful, positive, loving manner. And if you can, act from the Christed level, and you and the whole planet will benefit. And I want to thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, and I just want to say, continue to breathe, because we all tend to have this thing that something happens and we want to stop breathing. So if something hits you, maybe it's a negative surprise, in a sense, a surprise, so continue breathing. It'll take your breath away for a second, but quickly remember, breathe, and we love all.
You both. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Bye-bye now.